I'm going to be talking mainly on education. I happen to have been brought up in a home where education was regarded as very important. And in doing my work too in government, I've really been looking at schools, very much at schools in my environment. I think education is the most important element that our communities need to face head-on. We live in societies where communities are unequal in every way. When I say in every way, I mean from from birth to the time that people part their ways going away from this world. But our experiences as communities are are vastly different. Why? Because mainly of the circumstances that we found ourselves born into. You are part of a family, and then you become part of a community, and you become part of a nation, really. And you can find that your experiences are just narrowly embedded in the little place where you were born. That's what is going on with a lot of the people that we live with. Now, those are great, it's a great challenge. And I'm trying to say that we need to find a way of getting to know what your neighbor, who your neighbor is, what your neighbor is doing, and then we can talk of empowered communities, and then we can talk of moving together towards a certain end, which is what nations are about. I'm saying here that we have a situation where perhaps most of the communities, I wouldn't know the percentage, but I think all of us here would attest to that. Most of the communities really haven't got an education that makes them feel self-reliant, that makes them feel competent enough, to start on their own. So there is looking for jobs, looking for where I can depend on somebody to take responsibility of the success of the business or whatever you want to call it. But it's not for me. Somebody else must take the risk and all that. I just get my pay at the end of the month. So we got a greater proportion of our community looking at life that way. Now, what do we have to do, to make people feel that I can be an entrepreneur, I can start a job, I can do this and I can do that, so that we can have our country move forward better in the economic sphere and really be such that it competes with the best of economies of the world, because I think we are blessed with everything here in this country. We've got it all. We just need to have our act put together. Now, education becomes very, very important, of course. And we have to accept that perhaps there's a lot to be done to bring education up to the required standard, especially if you think of the past we come from. Now, what do we do? What do we do really as individuals and collectively to make sure that we can cover the gaps that exist in our education system? We see now, that in fact we're moving into an era where students in almost all our universities are protesting, And these protests, people like us, you feel that, perhaps they're moving in a way which is going to be problematic for the very students who want to achieve, because it takes them backwards in the way. Once you get to protest, then you are going to be finding that You can't concentrate, you can't focus on what you went to university for in the first place. Now, that is bound to affect the very aim we have, that you take our young people to universities so that they have the energy and the knowledge and the competence and the know-how to contribute to the economy of the system and of the country. I had parents who really, in my opinion, they lived way before their time, yeah, because they emphasized education. And in fact, not just for the family, but for the community, for the whole community of Groutville, education was emphasized from the home of, Chief Albert Luthuli and my mother. You therefore find that Groutville has quite a middle class, a component of society. Now, how did that happen? It was somebody with a vision needs to be there in a community. Groutville people, were farmers. They lived on farming. They were growing sugarcane. Now, sugarcane goes to the mill. They were using Melville Mill for processing the sugarcane to sugar. They were working as families, individual families and all that. It was my father who came and said, look, we need to form an association called Groutville Bantu Sugarcane Planters Association, an association where we can pool our efforts together. Then we can have a stronger voice at the mill managers and the mill owners and all that. And then we can have a way of raising collateral, and all that. So it's just that kind of thing that I feel it empowers communities when people can come and work together, but you need somebody with a vision. You need somebody to lead. You need somebody who is going to come up with programs and say, let's do it this way because it's going to help the whole community. The problems that we have, perhaps some of them will be minimized or disappear. Now, for instance, I can say myself, I'm very lucky that I was born in the home I was born in because I wanted to be a doctor. From an early age, I wanted to be a doctor. Now, if you think of the odds against, that was in the 50s, the odds against a girl becoming a doctor where there are also boys in the home, you stand very little chance. You stand very little chance, really. But I grew up in a home where boys and girls is the same, So we've got to make sure that those are the other things that we talk about in our communities to empower boys and girls equally. I'm here to just say that it's education, and it's education that will take our country forward. It's working together, black and white. We have to come out of our, confines and move around, get to know who is your neighbor, get to know who is your community and what they are doing. That is the way, in my opinion, that we will actually build the South Africa that we all dream of.